Hey, welcome to Functions. So this is the tab that we haven't actually got to yet. We've done a lot of these things before with the loops and the logic. So now we're going to start talking about functions. So what is a function? Well, let's just say that I want to draw a square. Okay, so we already learned the quick way of using a repeat loop. So we can do it, for example, a square has 4 sides. So if I want to draw a square, I could say repeat 4 times. I could just tell the computer, hey, drive a distance 5. And then turn right 90 degrees. Now we know that that's going to be a square. And actually, just to make it easier, let's speed this up. We'll speed it up to about 8. Alright, so now I'll go forward, turn right, go forward, turn right, go forward, turn right. So this draws a square. Okay? Well, what if I wanted to draw another square? So let's say I wanted to draw a different square. Well, I could just copy this, duplicate it, and put it back on there, and I could even change the distance so I could make it twice as big. However, if I did that, I just end up with lots of code. So there's no problem with this. It's just, this is not the best way of doing computer programming. Okay, so instead, there's this thing called functions. They're like methods. They're the same thing, actually. So what I'm saying is, if this block of code that I'm highlighting and dragging around, this right here, these 3 blocks of code, actually draw a square, what I can do is put them into a function. So grab the functions tab, pull this one that says do something. We don't want to return anything because we're not actually going to use any output. It's an execution. So just click the top one and then put that inside of there. Okay? To click on the name, I'm going to call this draw square. You just click on it and you can type in whatever you want. This is the name of my function. The moment I do that, I don't know why it didn't show up, but there you'll see another tab. Now I can tell the computer to draw the square. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, this right here is a function, and it's a definition of a function. It's like the instructions. This right here, what I just did is I took this code out of the main program and I put it into a function and I named it draw square. This means anytime I tell the computer to draw the square, it'll do this code right here. The problem is I didn't tell it to do this. I just told it how to do this. Okay, so this is called defining a function, and that's not the same as calling a function. So after I did this new block right here that kind of looks like it fits with the rest of the code, this is how you execute it. So for example, if I click it here and now I reset, it does the same thing. Okay, so that's really cool because I can actually just tell anytime I want to draw, if I want to draw 2 squares, I can just draw it like that. Boom, draws a square. Once it finishes, it does it again, it draws a square, and goes right back into the same loop of code. Okay, so that's all great, but then you might be wondering, well, now they're the same size. And that's true. That's because I've set a number in here and not allowed it to be a variable. So if you remember using variables last time, what you can do is you can throw that away, get rid of that, and go to variables, and we'll just put it in here, and let's name our variable distance. Okay, so now we've created a variable called distance. And the thing is, if you want your draw square to be a different distance, there's 2 ways of doing it. I could just set the distance ahead of the variable. So let's go to variables. Or no, sorry, it'd be under math. What's going on here? This looks a little different. Oh, I guess it's here. Set variable to set variable to. So I could say I want to set the first variable, and by the way, I want to click distance. I want to set the variable distance to 5, and then I want to set the variable distance to 10. And now it'll draw 2 different squares and it'll change the distance value. And so now it'll draw the first time with a variable of 5, but the second time when it enters, it uses the distance of 10. So that's why I get the 2 squares. Okay, that is better. That's a better way of doing it, but it's not the best way of doing it. So the best way is to actually put the variable into the function. And how you do that is you click on this little gear here, which is the settings, and you add the input, and we're going to call it, we'll just say X for now. And I'm going to change this to x, and I'm going to explain it to you for a second, and I'm going to explain it to you in a second, even though I am using distance. But I want this variable that I put in here to be the same as this variable in here. So it doesn't really matter what you use. I could use distance, but I want these to be the same. So right now I'm just going to call it x, and x stands for distance. And then I'm going to take these out of here. You might have noticed that these functions, these things now grew. They have a little spot here. So what I can do here is I can just set the value of x to whatever I want. So what was the distance of the first one? 5. And the second one? 10. And if I wanted to do another one, I could draw another one and just tell it how big. So basically it's waiting for me to tell it how big to make it. And I can just say, hey, I want to make it 15. And so now I can draw my square, but every time I draw the square, I have to tell the computer how big to make the square. And that makes it really cool. So that's the best way of doing this function, and that way I don't have to redefine the variable each time. Just when I call the function, I just tell it how far to draw. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. Talk to you later.